Hi, this is Conservative Party State Chairman Jerry Kassar, and this is Patriots Podium, a regular podcast by the New York State Conservative Party. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by Susan B. Anthony's List Vice Chairwoman and former member of Congress, Marilyn Musgrave. Marilyn served 3 terms in the House representing a portion of Colorado. She had prior service in both the Colorado State House and Colorado State Senate. In Congress, Congresswoman Musgrave established herself as a national leader of the conservative movement on both economic and social issues. In fact, she received a lifetime conservative rating of 99% from the American Conservative Union. Susan B. Anthony's List is a million-plus member nonprofit organization that seeks to reduce and ultimately end abortion in the U.S. by supporting pro-life politicians, primarily women, through its highly regarded SBA List Candidate Fund PAC. Conservative Party's Patriot Podium is a bi-weekly podcast that brings newsmakers, elected officials, and conservative leaders to you as we participate in a conversation on a wide range of topics. Marilyn, thank you for being with us.
I'm so happy to be with you today, Jerry. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. And it's good to have someone with, you're the 99% rating. I know
feel like a failure. Where did I go wrong?
Well, I can tell you from my own experience working with Congress, and let me say this to you: those are very impressive ACU chairmen during those years you served. It was so I would say this to you: I don't really know anybody that's ever gotten over a 90% rating. So from New York, anyway.
Wow.
So thank you.
Well,
let me just tell you, the audience and you, a little bit about the Conservative Party. We're the New York State's 3rd largest political organization. We have 153,000 enrolled members of the party, receiving about 300,000 votes from a statewide perspective. President Trump got 298,000 votes. Lee Zeldin, our candidate for governor last year, got 313,000 votes. And because New York's a fusion voting state, these votes are combined with with the GOP in those cases. We are strongly and officially a pro-life organization and have enjoyed a long relationship with the National Right to Life Committee and SBA. I was wondering if you could take a few moments to explain to our audience the differences between the National Right to Life Committee and SBA and how they also complement each other in your work.
Well, Jerry, let me tell you, when I was a mother of 4 little kids, I can remember getting the National Right to Life newsletter in the mail, and I devoured every word. The respect that I have for National Right to Life is immeasurable. It goes back all those years. I remember in my congressional campaign getting postcards in the mail with beautiful little babies on them and a message about the candidates. And of course, I've always been very pro-life. And I look to the National Right to Life really as the organization that through the years has been faithful through it all. Good administrations, horrible administrations, standing faithfully for life. SBA, and I'll never forget the day that I was on the floor in the Colorado State Capitol, sitting at my Senate desk, and I got a letter from Susan B. Anthony. At that time, it was called Susan B. Anthony List, and very interested in my campaign for Congress. And to think about that, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, finally, there is some organization in this right to life movement that's political, that understands that you can educate, have policy and do all these things, but you need some political heft in this movement. And that was my introduction to SBA, never having dreamed that I would serve in Congress and then later work as a lobbyist for Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America now. So we work with National Right to Life. We respect them. And I tell you what, it takes all of us in the movement. As you know, right now in this country, the other side is just hell-bent abortion for any reason up to the moment of birth, paid for by your tax dollars. People actually have a hard time believing how extreme the other side is. But we look to the faithfulness, the effectiveness of National Right to Life through the years, and now working alongside them is just, it's like a goal that I've had in my heart to be in the pro-life movement, to be on the front lines with National Right to Life is incredible for me individually and so beneficial for the movement. And SBA Pro-Life America is so grateful to work with National Right to Life.
As a member of Congress or in the legislature, and I worked many years in New York as a senior staffer in the legislature. You know how when someone walked in your office with a little rose on their lapel, and even though you always will treat everybody equally and the same and think very highly of whoever comes into your office, when they came in with the little rose, you kind of like, I would almost say it was like a passport to an additional conversation. You always felt like this was someone that was, advertising their support for sanctity of life. So just talking to you, it just reminds me of that little extra value added of being a member of the Right to Life movement when you're in the conservative movement.
It was incredible to me as a legislator, and boy, you're bringing back memories for me when a 70-year-old woman would walk in with the rose on her lapel and just sit down and talk to me from the heart about the preciousness of an unborn child. And I sat there as a legislator, and it was the life issue that got me into politics. That's what got me involved. I volunteered for candidates when I was mom of those 4 kids, and really knew that if these people running for office really cared about the unborn child, then I could support them and I could work for them. But it was a deal breaker for me even back then, because and then later being a state senator and a member of Congress, and people come in with issues on veterans benefits, private property rights, being jerked around in some way, and they need help. And I thought, if an elected official doesn't care about the most vulnerable human being, why would they care about their constituents' concerns, whatever it might be? So it's always been, the issue for me. I could never vote for someone that wasn't pro-life. And I'm so thankful for those people that talked to me early on. I'm so thankful for my mother, especially teaching me about being pro-life. It's just my whole political career, like I said, started because I wanted defenders of life in office.
Well, thank you. So needless to say, the reversal of Roe versus Wade, which we were all working towards, well, since there was Roe versus Wade, those marches, legislation, town halls. I mean, we were
above, yes.
All the above and beyond. I mean, it was a monumental victory for the sanctity of life and frankly, for common sense.
Yes.
What are the next battles to be fought on a national level from the Right to Life perspective?
Well, first of all, we were anticipating the decision long before it came down. We knew that the pro-life movement had to demonstrate, it's always been there, but compassion for women, support for women and girls that were in desperate situations. So we knew that the compassionate side of the pro-life movement had to be shown to the people. We also knew that the real work would begin if we got a good decision. And praise God. And Jerry, I have to confess right here, I was really wondering if I would ever see Roe v. Wade overturned in my lifetime. I've been one of those ones, that through the years, kept marching, doing all the things you mentioned, gathering together pro-life members of Congress to advance our goals with Congressman Chris Smith. I even served with Henry Hyde. Man, talk about a hero, and did all those things. But I wondered if that day would ever come. But when the Dobbs decision came down, I mean, we were ready to get to work. And we saw a great deal of disappointment after that great victory. It seemed like some of our pro-life heroes now just didn't want to talk about it anymore, or they wanted to say, well, now it just goes back to the states. And we know that the Dobbs decision, and it's very carefully laid out in the Kavanaugh concurring opinion, that now, after Dobbs, the issue is back to the people and their elected representatives at the state level. And I might add, hear this loud and clear, Congress, at the federal level. So we are advocating for life in the states, and we're working with the beautiful pro-life, National Pro-Life has their chapters in the states. We work with them and the family policy groups, pro-life legislators to advance protection for unborn children at the state level. And we're also working very hard at the federal level. And I might add, you know, the place where we've landed now with over 70% of Americans saying they oppose late-term abortion, even those that call themselves pro-choice. We are advocating for a national, we look at this and we want to end all abortion, but we're political. We're that political arm of the pro-life movement. So we are advocating for Lindsey Graham's bill in the United States Senate right now that would limit abortion at 15 weeks. And we know that that point in the pregnancy, we have a beautiful research arm. We know that at that point, that unborn child can feel pain. And Jerry, that's part of the way that we can approach the American people and say, would you end abortion at the point at which the unborn child can feel pain? And people oppose late-term abortion. So we're advocating for that. We celebrate life at conception. We celebrate heartbeat. But we're trying to land at a place where we at least have presidential candidates saying they would they would stop late-term abortion.
Well, I think that the Biden administration, which seems to have no limitations on how they're willing to get around the Constitution, get around Congress, at least the House of Representatives, is another reminder of the limitations of Dodd. I think it's a reminder that people need to vote and vote for pro-life conservative candidates. But let me ask you this. So years ago, I knew Phyllis Schlafly a little bit. I don't want to sound like Phyllis Schlafly was a friend of mine, but I did know her a little bit back in the early days. She obviously was giving extraordinarily solid arguments in opposition to the Equal Rights Amendment, which is, you know, a fake name, frankly, but what we know it as. And then we thought it went away, and then it started. Now it's been coming back. At the time, we were not really talking about how it equated to abortion. We were utilizing other arguments. But now I think it's pretty clear that a national equal rights amendment would affect abortion. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, one of the mementos that I've kept through the years is a letter from Phyllis Schlafly in regard to my time in Congress and thanking me for my service. I thought, wow, here's my hero. And I have this letter from her thanking me. So God bless Phyllis Schlafly for all of her work. The ERA was, brought up in the 70s. Of course, it would have to be ratified by 3/4 of the state. The deadline was 1982. At that point, 35 states had ratified, 35 states had ratified, not the required 38. So should have just gone away then. And as you said, abortion was not really being talked about in those of us that opposed it at that time. But now we know, we absolutely know that the ERA, the resurrected ERA, is all about enshrining a right to abortion in the U.S. Constitution. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than this. And so it's out there for everyone to see now, lawyers talking about how, women had the right to abortion, women on Medicaid, taxpayer funding of abortion. So that's what the ERA is all about. And it's no longer undercover. Forget the fact that the ratification period expired. Forget the people thinking that it's really about equal rights for women. No, it's all about abortion.
Well, thank you. So you alluded to this earlier, and I want to bring it back. Some states, frankly, like New York, responded to Roe's reversal by advancing incredibly egregious state laws. I mean, even working to codify effectively abortion to term in their state constitutions. Is SBA elevating its in-state operations? I don't just mean New York, I mean around the nation, adjusting to the increased threat on a state level.
Oh, absolutely. When I talked about the Dobbs decision and how it sent the Senate back to the people and their elected representatives, we are applauding states that come forward and pass heartbeat or full protection for unborn children, all of those things. And we have 25 states that have taken pro-life actions of some sort. And we've been there working alongside legislators and groups on the ground. But the egregious thing is 25 states have not decided to protect children. And the brazenness of states like New York and Illinois and my home state of Colorado. Colorado just recently, the legislature said that no longer will abortion pill reversals be possible in Colorado. So they outlawed abortion pill reversal, the people that talk about choice all the time. I mean, and chemical abortion accounts for over 50% of abortions now. And in states like Alabama and Louisiana and Texas, where pro-life laws have been passed, you can get an abortion pill through the mail, get the abortion pills through the mail, and it doesn't matter what the state legislature or the governor has done to protect life. So we see that as a huge battle. Jerry, one of the most offensive things to me was when Governor Gavin Newsom had billboards put up in pro-life states advertising for women and girls to come to California to get their abortions. And on the billboards, he had scripture, love thy neighbor as thyself, as if California was extending love and support for women to come there and have abortions. I mean, it's beyond the pale. So we have pro-abortion states like New York and sadly Colorado, Illinois, recruiting women for abortion. In states where there are pro-life laws enacted, very often abortion facilities just move right across the state line. There are all sorts of ways that undermining the Dobbs decision is taking place in the states, and
it's abortion tourism that they're promoting for
that's
economic
the
reasons, as
right
well as
term.
they have some sort of philosophical belief in it. New
Well
York
said.
State has its own version of an equality amendment on the ballot next year. And it's not even there just about abortion. It actually eliminates, I shouldn't say eliminates, but it incredibly limits parents' rights on issues such as gender reassignment. I mean, they are now just incorporating every extreme view they can,
Yep.
and hoping that the electorate goes for it. And frankly, it takes a lot of money for us to sometimes defeat these proposals, of which SBA has been very helpful. But, they have the wheels of government that help them push their agenda along. And we're just normal people, trying to get our message out.
Yeah. And this Biden administration is the most pro-abortion administration we've ever seen. They're promoting abortion through the Department of Defense, the VA. There's no limit, as you said, and they're trying to get everything they want in one package. And Jerry, these ballot initiatives are terrible because there's no real debate. And very often, he who has the most money wins. So the pro-abortion side, the progressive side, they're putting all of this money into ballot initiatives, and people are not really informed as to what they do. So we're fighting the fight right now in Ohio, their ballot initiative. There's issue 1 on the ballot. And again, it's about parental rights, it's about abortion. And the other side, you have to acknowledge that they're brilliant. They're taking these ballot initiatives very often into pro-life states and just decimating all of the pro-life work that's been done. So there's much to do. And I tell you, the more we can do to inform people how extreme the other side is, the better off we are. Because I believe the voters will still reject it if they know there's just so much work to be done.
Well, I mean, the one in New York, we're probably, I mean, we certainly will be working towards a strong turnout on with pro-life voters. We tend to believe that the hinge on this thing, the hinge pin, so to speak, is the simple reality that parental rights are decimated in this particular constitutional amendment. And since the mandates and all the back and forth with the mask and everything else concerning COVID, I don't actually think many parents realized just how much the government could get into their business. And now with this,
so true.
It's just unbelievable that a parent might not be able to stop a 14-year-old from a gender reassignment. I mean, and that just to me is a notion of insanity. But let me ask you: you kind of alluded to this just now? So you had an amazing career in government, being a strong, unwavering supporter of the values of the conservative movement espouses, and I know it was well beyond the pro-life issue. It could have been on weapons, guns, Second Amendment, I should say. Maybe I think of them as a weapon, but a Second Amendment. It could have been on taxes, could have been on parental rights. I mean, you were very, very consistent, and it showed in your voting record. So just your thoughts in general about the political culture today, particularly the political culture in Washington.
Well, I just want to say that so many people that I talk to are so disillusioned with Congress. And I just have to remind them there are many God-fearing people serving there that want to do the right thing and are working very hard to represent our values. But the national media doesn't talk about them. And when we have the United States Senate and this administration, Democratic, and Jerry, I SBA Pro-Life America is bipartisan, but the Democrat Party has chosen to be so extreme on these issues. It is just unreal. When we talk to everyday Democrats, at least a third of them are pro-life. So I hope people will start to see, when they're so disillusioned with Washington, that especially independents and Democrats will realize that that party has left them. And I look to the day where there will be courageous pro-life Democrats that will run for office. And, I know the powers that be try to shut off all their money and all their support. But I look to the day where we have pro-life leaders in both parties. So I would just say to people that are disillusioned and kind of want to drop out, don't you dare. If there ever was a time where we need to stand up for our values and fight the good fight and support those who represent our values, it is now. We have a presidential election coming up. We have, maybe pro-lifers can win back the majority in the United States Senate. Maybe there can be a pro-life majority in the House of Representatives, but none of this happens unless everyday people get up and stay involved or get involved in this political process. We are so blessed in this country to have the ability to choose people who run for office, to get in there and advocate for our values. So come on, people. This is the time. And those unborn children need us. As you say, parental rights are on the line. I mean, Jerry, that goes way back when us pro-lifers were working for informed consent, parental consent. There's really nothing new, except now the other side has so much money and so much power. So we must stand up and fight for life.
Absolutely. And when you raise that issue, I think it's extraordinary that some of the socialists, some of the left extreme wing of the Democratic Party has gotten this far. because as you indicated earlier, poll after poll indicates that they are not really center of any movement in the nation. I do think to some degree, they always want to talk about fear tactics that we use. It's really fear tactics that they use. They use it constantly to make people believe that somehow their neighbors, their grandmothers, that we've all become monsters.
Yeah.
And that's just not true.
It's not true at all. They demonize people who pray on the sidewalk at abortion facilities. They talk about how well funded we are. They have the money, they have the national media, but we have the truth. And it's an uphill battle. It has been. But Jerry, an image that comes into my mind is when we have taken in recent years some of our grandchildren to the March for Life in Washington, D.C. And I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional here. But when you march and then you look back and you see that sea of people standing there, hundreds of thousands of people standing for life, and I show that to my grandchildren, my husband and I instilling deeply that value in them. I think of the faithfulness. I think of what color the hair was of many of those people marching. They had been marching since the 70s, but I also saw the kids, the teenagers, the young people. And it's an infusion of energy. It's an infusion of talent. It's an infusion of respect for those that have been standing for life since that dark day in our nation's history when that decision came down. So here we are.
To your point, whether it be CPAC or the March for Life, of which I, certainly have marched in more than a few.
Yes.
There is really a big youth element. You do see, of course, which you didn't see, years and years ago. You do see people willing to make the trip in and be pushed in a wheelchair because they've been doing this for 20, but they're being pushed by a young person. And,
Jerry,
and there's a lot of them.
Image that is. What a beautiful image that is.
It is true. Very, 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 very true. I would say to anyone who we march in 4th of July parades, which we should, and I do certainly on Memorial Day parades, but there's something a little different about marching in January, frankly, in DC, among the monuments, among the official buildings, with people that are from all over the nation. They really come in by buses. They're not necessarily taking a bus from California, but you got to admit, within the 250, 300 miles of the capital, you get plenty of people.
Yeah.
And they know what they're talking about, and and it's not, how do I say this? It's not really, it's a strong religious, love of God feeling, but it's not what it really is. It's just because it's such a mixture of people from different views and on different religious issues, but they all come together believing strongly in the sanctity of life and that abortion is morally wrong.
Yes.
So it's really, people should march in. People should just go and march in this thing once in their lives.
They should. And, Jeannie Mancini that heads up March for Life, love her. She said, now we need to be, instead of marching to the Supreme Court after the Dobbs decision, we need to march to the Capitol.
Exactly.
Because that's where this nation can be changed with a federal protection for unborn life. And Jeannie said it well. So elected officials have this power to change this darkness in our country, and we have the ability to work hard to elect people that will represent our values that we hold so dear. And I, for one, am staying in the fight. I think I told you earlier, Jerry, I think we're supposed to go to heaven completely exhausted. And I know some days pro-life activists, people in this movement grow tired. But again, truth is on our side. And I'm not going to stop. And I know you're not going to stop. And I want to tell you, I admire you so much and the work that you've done and the faithfulness that you've shown through the years.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you, Marilyn, for taking the time to be with us and for all you do. The strength that you have shown on issues ranging from sanctity of life to parental rights, support for the Second Amendment, as well as smaller government and lower taxes. It gives us renewed energy as we fight these day-to-day battles. And thank you, Katie and Andrew. I don't see Andrew on, but Andrew for helping make these podcasts
Yes.
happen. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. Thanks again for joining us. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, subscribe wherever you listen and give us a 5-star rating. Until next time, I'm Jerry Kassar, and this is Patriots Podium.